Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is Tracy Larson, the president and CEO of WeSuite. They serve the commercial and residential security industry, which is a very big industry here in North America and around the world. She came out of that industry and built software for the very complex and very important estimating, quoting, selling process that makes or breaks a security company. She started in 2008 and brought this business into the cloud, no outside funding. She sold the company with her co-founders to Valsoft just last year. That's a holding company that buys and holds SaaS software companies. She's still running the company and has a lot to say about what happened there and why it's so great for her. She's still running the company and the team is intact, her customers are intact, and she's having fun. And she talks about being a woman founder as well in this industry and how she thinks about all that. It's a great episode with Tracy Larson. Hi, Tracy. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast.
Hey, Greg. Nice to be here. Thank you.
We had scheduled to talk for this podcast about a month ago, but you scheduled a big trip. And you just got back. And you have a crazy story, your entrepreneurial journey at WeSuite. And you're still going here, a very practical founder. Let's just start, Tracy, which is, what is WeSuite today in the world of software?
Yeah. So we started within a niche market. We are in the
Yeah.
electronic security and fire and alarm industry. We were originally what are known as electronic security integrators. And so we understood the market we were in. But the missing ingredient that we saw repeatedly was to have a very good sales software. And that was
Yeah.
everything from lead creation and management through estimating.
Yeah.
So we are sales process software, process
Yeah.
management software.
Yeah.
And we really are expert at making sure that a bill of materials, labor, other costs, and recurring revenue are included on estimates and making sure they're profitable. Or if you are
Yeah.
selling at a loss leader, we kind of take care of anything from estimating all the way through document production and signing and winning sales. Lots of things like that. Anything sales.
Does that include CRM features of tracking prospects and pipeline and customers and
Yep.
all that Salesforce type thing, but that doesn't apply to any vertical right out of the box? So you're a very vertical CRM with all this deep estimating and quoting and,
Yeah. I think the
tendering.
thing that really does separate us is our deep understanding of the industry
Of
itself.
course.
We did over time, lots of lessons over the years, but we have a very good API. And so if somebody wants to use Salesforce, they can easily utilize our API.
Ah,
Yes. And so that's been done and done well. And so we're feeding Salesforce, it's feeding us. The same with any, accounting platform. So, the
ah,
idea is to have a best of breed application for sales so that you're not kind of foregoing certain things that are very, very important in sales. And we always
yeah,
say, that's where it starts. If we
yeah.
can get it done right in sales, then you're feeding the rest of the organization with accurate, good information that allows you to be much more profitable in delivery and support.
That's great. How big is the company now? What can you say about revenues and employees and all of that?
So we're typically about 23 people. So we're
Okay.
not a giant company.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have grown nicely. And actually, I'm really proud of the fact that we grew very nicely after our acquisition, after
Yeah.
selling.
So you sold the company as well. Uh, what can you say about that briefly?
I'll say a few things. Especially for people who aren't sure if they want to sell. We were not sure of that. And we never accepted money from anyone else. So everything we did was based on, us. And for a long time, we really focused on the revenue coming in and making sure that we had professional services to bring revenue in addition to our license software. And we can talk more about that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, the way that we praise things. But After acquisition, I think it's often you see a dip. You see companies that lose revenue, they may lose customers. We did
Yeah.
the opposite, and so I'm
Oh, okay.
very proud of the team. You know,
And you're still with the company after selling. Did you sell all of it or
we s-
a partial? Yeah.
we sold 100%.
Okay, look
Um,
at that.
this was another thing that wasn't anything
We'll
where
talk about the whole thing here, but, like, just, who acquired, your company?
yeah. So Valsoft out of Montreal,
Valsoft.
Canada,
Okay.
is who we sold to. We were we weren't looking to sell at the time, but there were some things that Valsoft offered that were very meaningful to us. And
Ah,
so
great.
one is that the DNA. At WeSuite, we really care for our employees and our clients. And I was very impressed with the same values I saw at
Mhm.
Valsoft on a bigger scale.
Yeah,
And the second was that they buy and hold.
yeah.
So it wasn't like you were going into the VC or an equity kind of deal where it was just
The meat
about,
grinder.
yeah, yeah, that was a big, big deal. Um,
Okay.
so
And when did you sell the company?
we sold March 31, 2024.
Okay.
So my official birthday is April Fool's Day.
Okay. There we go. So it's been a year inside the holding
Yeah.
company. You and your partners, co-founders are still going, and the family continues,
Yeah, we
for
we
the
had
the industry that you came out of.
yeah, we had 3 founders. One just was more operational and more kind of investing with us. And so he wasn't really active in the business when we sold, but our CTO and I continued.
Okay.
And I ended up as CEO here at WeSuite for Valsoft. And I was really happy to do that. I
Mhm.
thought that the investment in our people, making sure that their first year was, we knew it was going to be a bit of a roller coaster to a
Yeah.
degree,
Mhm.
but also making sure that our people and our clients felt that they had the same people who are always here available to them. That was very important. And I think that was important to Valsoft too.
Yeah,
Um,
it's important to a lot of practical founders who really can't imagine selling their company to the meat grinder, private equity, or strategic that may or may not pay attention to it, and they want a good home and continuation for their customers. So we'll talk about your experience with a holding company, buying your company after a long time in this specialist vertical space. Can you say how much Valsoft paid to acquire you, or
I
can you?
cannot share
Yes,
that,
right.
but I can say that, we were happy with a few things. Number one, we had built a very strong ARR business. And so I think that the multiples that we were getting, we were happy with. Number
Great.
one. Number two, we really were looking for a company that would help us to get to the next level.
Mm,
And I think many founders find that maybe they're riding too fast, or maybe they feel like they've ridden quickly and done well, but now they need that next level. And we
yeah.
were really in that category. We were really
Yeah.
looking for a company that would help us to get to the next level, the next market, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that was our, probably the second reason
Yeah.
to become part of Valsoft.
Well, it is one of the ways to scale up. You literally sold your company, but now you're still part of it. You have an economic interest here, but you're also getting the help to get to the next level that
Mhm.
you didn't get in the last way. It's another way to do it. Sometimes selling your company is a way to scale up your vision
Yeah.
for serving more customers and building a better company there. So that's really exciting. So, has life changed for you since selling the company? Having a bigger bank account and a little more supervision, like an actual board and things like that?
Yeah, I think the things that are very different for me, one is so we had always operated in a very, a conscientious way in terms of spend of our budgets,
We
okay?
say frugal. It's okay here. Yeah.
Yeah, pre-acquisition. And I think that's very important because it didn't rattle us too much post-acquisition.
Ah.
The only thing I'll say is that, gosh, I wasn't used to having to fill out expense reports anymore and, doing all these things. I basically could do my thing and I had someone who took care of those things. So that's, the paperwork aspect is not one that I love, but I
Hmm.
understand it. And, I'm a team player. I go for it. Um,
Yeah.
I think the thing that probably has been most appreciated by me, probably a couple things. Number one, I found out that we actually were doing things very, very well.
Yay.
Yeah, that was really validating. The second was that our product is very sticky. It
Ah.
was stickier than I realized. And I
Because
think
did you raise prices and you weren't sure if
we did
people were
raise
going to
prices.
leave and they didn't? Right. There you go.
Yeah, and so that's a very good point. I think for anyone out there that my recommendation is just raise prices every single year. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be a huge amount, but get used to doing that. But I think the other thing is that that's one way to recognize it, right? Understand that, hey, I raised prices more
Hmm.
than ever before and we did well and people are here. But I think the other is to understand what others see in your product. And as close as we are very close to our clients.
Yeah.
Number one, that's what they are. They're our clients.
Yeah.
We're here for them. But I recognized after the acquisition, especially getting a lot of feedback, even, more feedback, I think, from clients that they really
Mm.
appreciate the attention that we pay to them in support, the
Mm.
fact that we always invested in our product. So we never stopped developing. We
Yeah.
invested a lot in developer education and
Yeah.
methodologies and things like that. So that stickiness factor was really
Yeah.
something that was great to to kind of reemphasize. This is why we
Yeah.
did this. And the
Yeah.
third was to have a board, to have
Yeah.
other CEOs from other companies at Valsoft that I could sit down and talk with. And that I discovered probably, I would say 5 months in maybe.
Hmm.
Um, we would have regular leadership meetings, but when I finally started really talking, we had a meeting together with all of our managing directors from the various companies um, in our portfolio. That was a game changer because we
Yeah.
actually got to sit and compare notes.
Peers. Right.
Yeah, and find out that many of the challenges that you face, they're the same. They're the
Yes.
same everywhere.
Comes up
Um,
in our my Practical Founders peer groups every month with all the founders who going through similar struggles with similar types of companies. Yeah.
and there, you may not get the answers, but you
Yeah.
get relief from understanding other
It's
people.
important. That's right.
Yes, and
Yeah.
the other thing was that, it was also a great way to find out, "Hey, what do you think of this?" So to present a challenge and
Hmm.
ask
Exactly.
for.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, or to present, a success
Hmm.
and to say, "These are the things we did that made that successful." I almost feel like the value in that was I wish I had known and found that
Yeah.
earlier, that would
It's
have.
very lonely to be a
It is.
CEO of a software company and bootstrapped and on your own, and nobody gets what you do, and you're in this industry, and you think you're very doing things differently. And there's a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of relief, as you say, when you're sharing ideas and challenges and wins.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I found that was really interesting to me was that I was the only, managing director who was a founder in the group that I
Ah,
was in, with the
yeah,
other companies I was with. There is a person who she's terrific, had been promoted from within, and I thought that
yeah,
was very, very important. I think
yeah,
that was one of the reasons that we sold, to Valsoft. We wanted to have a really good future opportunity for our team, for those who are
yeah.
willing to step up and take that. And
Of
so I
course.
saw that with one of my good friends now and another MD. The others had been actually they were maybe there was another one who had been promoted within, and then there were some who were hired from the outside in. And
Yeah.
so it's a very interesting thing to really find out where people are from and what their experience is and to really dig into that. I think that's one.
It's an opportunity for founders to see how, let's say, professional SaaS CEOs, hired gun CEOs, are doing things. They miss some of the history and the soul of the business, the understanding of the vertical market, all that deep charm for their industry. But there's some other principles that they're good at,
Yes.
hiring and the financials and the management and operations and other ways of thinking. And, they can learn from you about what's it like to be a founder in this game and have lived through all the generations and, find your own uniquenesses to your playbook that aren't very standard, and all of that. So that's great. Tracy, you mentioned you have 20-ish employees. You've been bootstrapped and profitable, for almost 15 years going through this here with the little services business. Can you say about how much revenues you had when you sold the company
We were
to?
headed to the north of 5 million.
Yeah, yeah,
So we are a small company.
yeah,
But what I have found right away with Valsoft is that we're really seeing our growth kick in.
yeah,
Um, we we are still the primary, that's our primary responsibility. And so one of the things I think it's important to understand, especially a small company that might sell to an organization like Valsoft, is that I think I learned this a long time ago in my corporate experience. I worked at a company that they used to always laugh, you get enough rope to hang yourself once.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And Valsoft's not necessarily like that, meaning,
yeah. Of
this other
course.
company was pretty tough. But the idea is that there are guide rails. There are
Yeah,
things that you're understanding are very, very important in order to make sure that A, you've got growth, and B, you're minding your costs, your expenses.
yeah,
And really, Valsoft is very big about that, really looking at line item expenses. And we always had done that too. So I think
yeah,
that, again, that was a good match for us. And I would say that anyone out there who is not necessarily really looking at costs, especially your people, really do that. Really evaluate, the team itself and who's really there and can continue the climb, and those that may fall off because you've gotten to a level that just it's not for them. They
yeah.
good people, but can't make that. That's
That transition does happen, one of the many transitions as, software companies grow up, but when you're stable over 1,000,000 and you have first version of product market fit and so forth, you have the scrappy team and not a lot of management and just do what it takes attitude and so forth, but as you head towards 3 to 5,000,000, you have to start to turn into more of a factory inside the business to deliver product and customer value and, do that efficiently. And not everybody likes to do that thing. So you say expenses, and every practical founder knows that most expenses in a software business are the people. So not everybody makes it to the next level, and sometimes you pay more for somebody who's been through the journey as well.
And
So
I think that
yeah,
the only other thing I would add there is that I think, especially in software, developers are, we have to have, right? And we love. But I think that one of the things you have to really watch for is that balance of we took this on very early at WeSuite, that you have to be developing for the specific purpose, who you serve, right? Our clients and what they need to do and making their lives better and easier. So I think it's very important that you balance out the love of technology and love of new methodologies and love of new whatever, the shiny balls, with the practical need for what you're
yeah,
doing, because it's got to be revenue producing. And not everything you will invest in on the development side is directly revenue producing, meaning that sometimes
yeah, yeah,
you've got to innovate, but you've got to also update. And so you might say, like, wow, I'm going to go invest $1 million in development education and technology and tools. What is that really doing? But I think that you have to look long term as well as short, and figure out the right path. We kissed a few frogs for sure.
yeah, yeah.
But we learned. from each of
Yeah.
those.
And you didn't build this company to sell it, right? It's
No,
kind of that classic, very niche, very sticky, very, let's say, family oriented. You know your customers, you know your employees, longtime employees. This very sticky, steady business that you didn't push too hard and overinvest and waste money on things that might work. You were very, focused about what you invested in along the way.
we were, and I think that, we learned also I think we did a lot of things, that might have been very practical in nature, but they
Hmm.
worked out well. So
Yeah,
we
good
put a
bets.
lot of thought into how we priced. We put a
Ah,
lot of thought into, we have a very modular type configuration. So you can go from, a basic to a very enhanced configuration, but we learned how to price that so that if you're going to a more enhanced configuration, we were gaining in revenue.
yeah.
That is very critical because, that's also what helped to pay for continued, software development. Um,
That's
so
great.
yeah.
So when did you start this company and why did you start it? Way back when?
So we started actually in 2008, quite by
Mm.
accident, I would say. Um, at the time, there were four of us, and we had seen that our market, really needed to have some kind of software that would help estimate.
You were in this security with cameras and integration, all that for businesses,
That's right.
all that stuff, and residential and so forth. I mean, it's a huge industry, of course, but you had a company like that and you saw your own problem. Is that right?
That's right. We
Oh,
definitely, understood the issues. At that time, we were a commercial security integrator, and we did very, very large projects. It could be a $30 million single project to,
wow.
a 5,000 or a $10,000 change, or
What
addition.
is the $30 million project? There's a new mega office building that needs to be wired up for cameras and security and I don't
Yeah,
know, a fire. Yeah.
my particular expertise was in very large market, typically union environments. That particular one, I sold the new. So when, unfortunately, I'm outside of New York City, when the Twin Towers fell,
Yeah.
that of course was something we will never ever forget. But
Mhm.
I sold the new securities for the new towers, and
Okay.
each was about 30 million
Wow.
at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing business there.
And that's what,
And
they're very complex projects. That's the point, I think, that part of what
yes.
the software had to do is be able to support multi-system, multi-level, multi-phase type projects. Or as you just mentioned, we had other clients who were residential and small business focused. So we built software that was very scalable. We could have maybe 3 users to we've got companies that have hundreds of users. And so
And
growth was
in the quoting and estimating, it's, hardware, it's software, it's services recurring, it's integration services one time, it's you say phases. What other complexities are involved in these
labor
big
is
projects?
one of the biggest.
Oh, right.
So labor could be something that's in many labor categories. We have people that have government GSA contracts or state contracts. They could have 100 different labor categories that they could quote.
Mhm.
We can have labor that's done at a part level. We could have, um, there's a lot of recurring revenue, different ways to quote recurring revenue,
My
um,
gosh. Okay.
commissions, all kinds of things, approvals, lots of complexity in order for the companies that we serve to really make sure they're going to be profitable when that estimate goes out. Um, there's, backpedaling into
It's all in the
profitability
estimate,
is
I
no
guess,
good.
right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And it's not always like selling to government, you can just charge them more later if the
No, no,
construction project
yes.
goes late or whatever, it's not really that way. That's amazing. So, it's kind of, yes, there's a lot of things going on, but this is a very top of the top of the heap acute problem, very important and urgent for almost everybody in the business, and their profitability is probably determined by how well and
Yeah.
sufficiently, they quote and estimate there. So it's a really important problem. Did you build the software for your own company and then realize there was other customers? This is a very common way to start a software company in practical founder land.
Um, Sort of, kind of, but not really. So,
Okay.
like many of the clients that we've helped, we had our super fantastic Excel spreadsheet
Ah.
with our coupled with our other super fantastic Word document or multiple Word documents. And the
Yeah.
idea was
Uh-huh.
that, somehow you'd marry those together. The problem was that you could never keep those. There was no centralized database. There was no way to
All that
make
stuff. Yes.
sure that it was secure. And the other thing is that it took a lot of time. You were constantly in this industry. The types
Mm.
of products that are sold change constantly. And
Mm.
we have clients that could have 500,000 different parts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, when you get into the complex kind of deals. But let's say that they had 20,000 parts. Well, that's a lot to maintain, especially when
Hmm.
pricing changes. Besides which, trying to, if you're looking at sales and 60, 70% of your sales are to your existing customers, you don't wanna have to repeatedly enter that information or
Ah.
yeah, so
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of,
That's awesome.
quotas, reporting, financing deals, a lot of complexity that we really just take for granted, I think, until you're having to sit down and properly put together an estimate.
And it's also why people who were not deeply in the industry, years and years in the industry, doing it over and over again, well, it's almost impossible for them to figure it out by go asking people, right? This is very common. The vertical, n- uh, complex software comes from people who with deep experience in the industry.
Yeah.
Um,
I would say
and I
we
don't
have
know that AI is going to change that, the magic pill there. But did you set out to build the software and build a software company for this problem?
we did. I at that time, when we decided to create WeSuite, it was so that we would have very good sales estimating software.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the year that we started was the first year, I would say within 6 months, the entire economy fell
Hmm.
through. That, by the way, was
2008.
the first time I went to Israel. And I remember being there and I was so excited to start this new journey when all of a sudden I thought, oh my goodness, I don't have a job. And hopefully my 401k didn't take too big a hit, coming back. But I would say, and I'm sure others can identify with this, I never once doubted, not one time, that this was going to do anything except succeed.
Yeah.
And there were many, many mornings, cold mornings, I'd wake up and say to myself, you got to get out there and go for it. Even when people were telling me, we don't think you're going to be here next year. And I
Mm.
heard that many times. You have to really understand who you are. And for me, it meant if I was going to go, have a second or third job, I'd do it. Every
Yeah.
dollar I had was being invested into paying people that we could hire, developers, and then building out the revenue model because we knew early on we needed cash in.
Yeah.
And so one of the first ways we, really looked at our pricing was to do that. And then eventually as
I mean,
we
charge up front or sell more
charge up
services or
front,
yeah, okay,
sell
yeah.
services, like even the model for the license at the time, we would take money down toward a license so that we had cash, and then you had a less expensive monthly. You always had that, always.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
we made sure
You could
that
say
we
the
had
more upfront, and then you'll have less, ongoing just to play the cash
and
game.
showed them their break-even point, and then,
Yeah.
eventually we moved right to a subscription model. We always charged pro services, always,
Yeah.
and,
Mhm.
I think that was a very
So you didn't give away your integration and the
no.
configuration for free or yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, these are people who are used to billing for their services and integration and so forth,
They used
so
to, it was really funny. I remember several times an owner saying to me, "Hey, that's our model." I'm like,
yeah, right.
"Mhm, so you
Yeah, right.
understand it." Only difference
In the security software, cameras, all that is that space. how much of the revenue is recurring and how much is one-time services and
That's changed a
equipment?
lot. So on the residential side, they really operated with a recurring model long before
Right.
many other
Home
industries.
security. Yeah.
Yeah, and but what they did was they would use that. They would know a break-even point for them could be within a year or, you know,
Hmm.
but they knew they were keeping their customers for probably an average of 10 to 15
Yes, of
years.
course. Yeah, of course.
So it
Yeah.
was very profitable. That did change over the years. The commercial side was not known for doing that. They were known
Uh,
for selling up front. You pay, and then
yeah.
hopefully you get a preventative maintenance contract or something. And that part of the industry has really changed. And we've changed the software in a very easy way to support that as well. So you're seeing technology with licenses. And, a camera could have a license. So if I've sold 500 cameras, there's 500 licenses, and we're
Ah,
calculating that recurring for them on all of their
okay. Look
estimates.
at that.
So, yeah, it's been a lot of changes over the
Yeah.
years.
Tracy, how many customers do you have now in
We
this
we
industry?
have a few hundred in the
Okay.
industry.
And are you helping them with best practices and sharing what works? And these innovators have tried this and it worked. And do you kind of help them cross pollinate and share the best practices?
We really do work on that. The relationship with the client is so important. And I'll tell you two things. We started a workshop that we do once annually. It was always geared towards 25, 30 people coming
Hmm.
in for 3 days of
Yeah.
education, where we were not only tackling and showing them new enhancements in the software, but we were also doing roundtable discussions on
Yeah.
commission plans, on proposals, on contracts and contract terms, and how to run your business better. So that proved to be something that our client base really has enjoyed,
And
and they even participate. We've had them teach sessions as
sure.
well. They love
Yeah.
learning from each other. Um, but the other thing we did was we established our own video academy. We established a very good knowledge base. Part of what we learned early on from our customers was that they really did want help. And so
Hmm.
we also offer, when we do a sale, it's a consultative sale. We have to
Mm.
really, even though we're selling in the same industry, every business is different. And so you're really digging into how they run their companies.
Their own business model, which could be different. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And you're also finding, hey, maybe they're doing something that they could do differently or do it better. And you're often asking, why do you do it that way?
Hmm.
And very often we hear because so and so established that. Okay, let's bring them in and talk to them. And they left 5 years ago. So, it's a lot of that kind of thing, really helping them to peel back the layers of the onion for themselves and to think differently. They haven't taken the time to do that. They're
Yeah.
busy running their businesses just like us.
This podcast is brought to you by my friends at Fullscale. 2 years ago, I interviewed three-time software founder Matt Watson on this podcast about his successful practical founder journeys. Matt leveraged offshore software development talent in his last two SaaS companies to staff up quickly and grow efficiently. So for his fourth venture, Matt created Fullscale, one of the fastest growing software development companies in any region. Fullscale vets, employs, and supports over 300 professional software developers and testers in the Philippines who can augment and extend your core dev team. I know several practical SaaS founders who use Fullscale's dev talent to make progress on their products and do it efficiently. Visit fullscale.io to learn why their approach works so well for so many SaaS founders. Now back to our program. So this is an interesting one for SaaS founders in these complex, let's say, business model, business processes, and you've got software for it. The some things like modern SaaS payment software and so forth, there's established practices that everybody use, the MRR, revenue recognition, and other things like that. And you can drive a lot of statistics out of that because everybody's doing it the same. But if all your customers are doing something differently, do you have to have the most customizable software to kind of adapt to the way they're doing it? Or do you try to get them over into your process and say, you have to get, you have to get modern with this and or some kind of way in between? How do you get, if you can't get them, to change their processes and improve it, it's not going to work. But what
The
did you do to
what
solve
we
that?
did, and again, this was early on, we learned that lesson, initially when you first start, a lot of times your inclination is to make everybody happy.
Say
And so
yes. Yes.
you're adding this little switch and that little switch, and you suddenly figure out that you have a big problem because it breaks. This one broke
Yes.
that one. And so we did a few things. We stopped doing that, number one, and we fixed our problems, number two. The next thing we did was we said, look, we've designed the software and the configuration as a series of checkboxes, essentially, for when you
Uh-huh.
configure. And so we
Yeah.
offer a broad range and a deep range. Let's
Mm.
figure out what works best for you. And I'm sure we don't do it all. So we're
Yeah.
very upfront with that. And most of the time, there are only a few things we can't do. There are a couple times when it's a game changer and we're
Yeah.
not going to do business together. That's
Yeah.
okay. I think that it's important to know that you cannot help everyone, and it's better to have a good customer than to have an unhappy one. Uh,
Okay, so let's talk about that moment. Is you went out and built the software and did your early customers and said yes to everybody and they built this overgrown early software and then realized that was a problem. How many years did it take you? This isn't a massive business and explosive growth and so forth, but how many years did it take you before you said, we have a solid core product. We
Mhm.
can say no. We know who we're good for. We know who we're not good for. We can say no because we have, 99 yeses. We can say, no to the other thing. How long did it take you before you kind of had the confidence? And I presume you were on the sales side to,
Yeah,
no.
my job initially was that I had to go get
Yeah.
customers. And so I'll give you two pieces there. Number one, I invested in sales education for me.
Hmm.
And I did that out of my pocket. It was $12,000 at the time.
Who did
And
you use for that at the time?
I'm sorry.
Who did you use for that?
Oh, that was I had a Sandler trainer. She
Oh,
was
Sandler. Okay.
amazing, and we're
Okay.
still doing
Great.
things today. She's amazing. Um, but that I had a customer who actually he recognized when we were talking that our sale is an enterprise level sale.
Hmm.
It's not an easy sale. And after we spoke and we were closing the deal, so that was good. I must have done something right. He took me into his conference room and he showed me this Sandler poster, and he said, "You need to call this person." And I did.
Yeah.
I left and I called her. And I had already realized that selling, you have to have a method for selling. You have to have a strategy, of course, but also a questioning strategy, a listening strategy. And you are in charge. It's like a pilot. You're flying the plane. And
Mm.
so you've got to make sure that although you don't want to sound like you're doing what you're doing, your time is valuable.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of work to make sure that our process could be compressed and go from X weeks to Y weeks. That made a big, big difference. But during that time, I also recognized that the only way to build revenue was to make sure that we were charging enough for our services.
Hmm.
We established a 3-year contract, and it does auto renew.
Yeah.
And so that was a very good thing that we did. The third was that we had to make sure too that we understood our customers and their needs. So I think that it took time, but I would say within just a couple years, we
Okay.
understood that we could not just sign up and do
Run
everything.
around. Yeah.
And you
Hmm.
have to watch for the people in your organization who are just pleasers. They
Yes.
really just want to say, yes, and they'll do it. And help them to understand why sometimes a no is better than a yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we recognize that customers were okay with a no.
Yeah.
They decided that if they had that as a priority and we were willing to do it, they would pay for that. And that was another way to make sure that we maintained our roadmap and what
They
we
needed a feature and they wanted to pay for it, then you would charge for the feature.
and everybody gets it. So that was
Yeah.
the other thing.
Okay.
We weren't
Yeah.
doing these
That's
things
very
just
typical.
one-offs. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how long did it take? You were a couple of years into confidently selling this in revenue, and if you didn't get that, you probably wouldn't be here today, right? All that to bring in your customer funding for your expenses. But was it 3, 4, 5 years to build a product that you were very confident about, or
I would
sooner or later?
say
Yeah.
it was sooner, and part of it, so there's a couple things here. It was sooner. We actually
Oh,
our
good.
product was the big things we faced were the changing economy.
Mm-hmm.
We had a few just real doozies on the economic side, but
Yeah.
um, we understood our base very well,
Hmm.
and there was a definite need. And so,
So you got right to the problem, you solved it, you were confident about that. That actually that confidence that I know you have a very acute problem, whether you're describing it or not, and our software is really gonna help you, and that helps people, like, move into a market and be the little guy that moves things and a little company, but, it also helps you say no. Like, people kinda
yes.
distract you on the side, and you say, "No, this is your problem. I know it as well as you do, or probably better." Like, sometimes you could diagnose their problem sometimes better than your customers.
It's true, and one of the things that I learned over the years was that the type of experience that I had, they didn't, and I was very,
Oh. You had done more in this industry than they had.
yes, and
Oh.
I probably should have utilized that more. Never wanted to come across as being that. I know this better than you do. And so when people would discover my background, they would all of a sudden say, wow, okay, we
Can
need
you
to
help
ask you
us?
about this
Yeah.
and this.
Yeah, right.
And I learned how and when to introduce that if it was necessary. But I also, one of the things I would tell anyone is get involved in your industry. That has served me so well. I stepped up many, many times. I volunteered. I sent, I would create education sessions at very large conferences. And once,
Your industry conferences.
yes, and
How big
once
would a conference be? The industry trade show? Was this like 10,000 people kind of thing, or
our biggest in the US is
Yeah.
about 35,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
It's big.
Yeah.
And so speaking there and participating there on
Yeah.
any kinds of committees, find the professional associations. I'm involved in security. We have a very big professional security industry association. And so I
And
instruct on project management. I volunteered and wrote many education sessions, get panels together, get other
yeah.
experts. This establishes you and your name and shows that you are an SME. And, for me, that's made a massive difference in terms of my purpose, and I think that that's
Mhm.
part of what you need as an owner. You can be so focused on the baby that you're missing, other things happening that are good for you. And
Yeah.
so for me, that was very important. So became I co-chaired a charity in the industry. Just this year, we
Mm.
passed the baton to someone else. And volunteering and being somebody who actually led a charity, that was a big deal for me. It
Yeah.
gave me it was very important for me to give back.
Yeah.
And I do believe strongly in people donating money.
Mhm.
Charities need that. But also I wanted to do something with my own two hands. And that was just incredible. I'm still on the board. You know, love doing the work, and we help kids in need in the US and Canada. And there are many. And that's an organization within our industry doing that. I'm also in the Security Industry Association, the Women in Security Forum. So I'm a
Yeah.
steering committee member there, and I am a co-chair on Strengthen Her, which is entrepreneurial advice and help to mostly women, but those who think they want to start a company or have a company and need advice. So there's a lot of ways to be involved this
So
year.
let's talk about that, Tracy. I mean, you're a woman founder and leading the business there. Do you think there's anything unique about being a woman founder? Advantages, disadvantages, or something you learned along the way that we could generalize in a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that I didn't realize the uniqueness until it was pointed out in kind of neon lights to me. But I think that's the way I've always approached things. I was, a woman on New York City construction sites in a hard hat for years. And
Ah,
I learned that I didn't make that special. And that
yeah,
was just me. That was the way
yeah.
I approached it. I wanted to be treated as equally as possible. That I've had my own experiences with that working and not working. But here in this industry, for a long, long time, there were not many recognized female leaders. And so I think it's really important that, um, number one, men in the industry understand that you're missing out. If you don't have women within your team and in your leadership team, you're missing out. Women are really good at what they do, and and we don't.
Relative to what they say about how
That's
good
the
they are.
thing.
So that's the opposite. We can
Yeah,
generalize.
and we tend not to
Men are.
promote
Mhm.
ourselves, and,
Yeah.
oftentimes, you will have to encourage a woman to apply for a job that she feels she's not yet qualified for. She won't apply for it until she feels she has the qualifications and experience, so don't wait. Help
Are
push.
you saying it's different with men?
Yes. And
Mhm.
it's out there, it's men, it's proven. Men will apply for roles that are maybe here for them and they're here. But they do that and they go out and just go for it. And so women, go do it. There's nothing there that says you can't get that job. And there's everything there that says that you can gain the experience. And I've learned for myself that I haven't recognized my own experience or level of experience. This year, I earlier this year, I received an email one night. I was working in the office and it said, "Congratulations, you have been elected to the Hall of Fame in the security industry." And my immediate reaction, and I sent a note back to this, I said, "I think you made a mistake. I'm not sure that this is the right, this went to the right person." And I really meant it. It was very, very surprising
Aw,
to me.
shucks. Mhm.
Yeah, and so, and it was real. And there is no greater honor than to have your
Yeah, how
industry
about that? Well
recognize
done.
something that, not in my wildest dreams. So
Yeah.
for women especially, and the men around us, even if your brother or your sister's going for something, promote her, tell her to go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You don't get the job, you
Mm,
know? Um,
yeah,
and get a
that's great.
mentor. That's the other one. Apply for mentorship.
Did you have a mentor as a founder?
I did
How
not, but I
okay.
participated in a mentorship program as a mentor for the last, I'm going on my 5th year. I just got a
Mhm.
new mentee, and,
Okay.
I think that that's a wonderful thing to do. I will tell anyone who wants to know about that, that I have, as a mentor, probably received more than I've given every
Yeah.
single time.
Isn't that
And,
amazing?
yeah, I would say, like, get involved in that. This is, another way just to round yourself out and give yourself something different than every day working in your business. This is still contributing.
So, Tracy, what would you recommend to women founders in the software with practical women founders out there? Should they seek out some women mentees and advisors? Is part of their mix, or focus on having more women advisors, or mix it up? What's your general recommendation?
I say, number 1, do get involved if, and you'll find in your industry, there are many associations, most have now, focus on women and,
Okay.
advice there. But I would say really get involved in the areas of your industry that can help you. So professional associations, they don't have to be just women, but pay attention to that. and take
Okay.
advantage of it. It's worth it. The other thing is that I think that if you find the right people, they become your personal board. And so the other
Yes.
recommendation I would say is, you don't need money. Just pick, maybe there's 5 people who you've known over the years, and ask, would you mind? Would you do this for me? Now, it's very important to say, maybe it's once a month. I want to just talk for 30 minutes about things like this. Boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. And I think establishing that little personal board is excellent.
That wasn't a formal board,
Right.
right? Some people say, I need advice and I want to create a board. I say, no, you just need advisors.
That's right.
And they don't want to be on a board. They just want you to call and they get the benefit of saying, here's the thing. And you clap and say, oh, that's amazing. I really appreciate it. Right.
Yeah, and it's
And if
it's
you
a
have 5 of those, you
personal.
get a diverse point of view
That's it.
and you need advice, not
And
a
you can
board.
switch it up, every
Yeah.
year or so. You will not understand what you get until you do it. And
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing is, I've always encouraged people to put themselves out there and get involved, and don't worry about what you don't know. We
Yeah.
all have things we don't know. We all have things that we don't feel confident about. Everybody, even the most confident person has their doubts about things that you're
I
probably
know.
not aware of. So,
Well, Tracy, let's skip forward to you're running this business. It's profitable. You've got a good team. You're making progress in your industry. Um, you've got to the cloud, so we'll skip right over that. I'm sure that was a challenge as well when you
yeah.
started. You weren't there, but you weren't trying to sell your company, and then somebody from Valsoft reached out to you and said, "Hey, are you interested?" Why did you take their call? And I'm sure other people knocking on your door here in
Yeah.
2024. So, before that, why did you take their call and why did that discussion move forward?
We actually I think we had been contacted by Valsoft directly, probably at least 3 times, maybe 5. Okay. And we hadn't taken the call. This
Yeah.
time was a little bit different. We had a friend of ours who has known us a long time in the industry, and he suggested that Valsoft, and had actually said,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah,
Well,
had said
recommendation.
why.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
had worked with them prior. And so just like anything else, when a friend says something and
Yeah.
suggests you might want to listen, you listen differently.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
so that's really how that started.
And then you picked up the phone and what process did you go through to get to a sale? I know there's a lot of steps there, but
There's a lot of
did you
stuff.
pretty quickly get to, oh, this could be a good fit and that's a reasonable number?
Yeah,
How fast did you get there?
we
Yeah.
set up a meeting face to face with the person that we worked with, and
Who was that at Valsoft?
Chris
So,
Maloof.
okay, great.
Yeah, and so I work with Chris every day.
Okay.
And yeah, we were just laughing about this actually recently. Our very first meeting, we said to him, look, if we do something and you give us an LOI, do not change that. We
Oh,
expect that what you put on that paper is real, and don't play with us. We're not interested in that. The second is that we wanted it to happen within 90 days. We wanted fast. We didn't want something that was going to be.
look at you driving the sales process, right? With confidence, right?
Yeah, there were just things that we knew would be better for the business. The
Yeah,
third is I think that as an owner, you really need to decide what you'd like to do. In other words,
yeah.
do you want to get all cash and go? Do oftentimes you're going to see an earn out of some sort. You have to decide whether or not that's really important to you.
Was there a debate there, or were you both in the same way about an
I
all
actually
cash up? Yeah.
thought that, I guess that in my area of my 64 personalities, I thought, I'm going to just do something else. I'm not going to go do
Oh,
this. Valsoft, Chris was pretty much like, no, we want you to stay, and we want Michael, our CTO, to stay. And I think it's
hmm,
very smart, of them for sure. But I really toyed with that.
I'm
I
sure.
didn't know what I would do. I'm not, one of the reasons I have enjoyed this first year and a half is that I've been very dedicated and active, and very committed.
Yeah, you're full-time running this business
Full
even after
time,
100%
full
cash
time
sales.
plus.
Did you know you wanted to do that, or you
No,
kinda came to terms with that? Yes, right.
I
Okay.
there are certain things that really attracted me. For
Mhm.
instance, I really enjoyed when I finally met people that I'd be working with. I really liked them, and so
Oh, good, okay.
personalities, the DNA, be humble, stay hungry.
Yep,
Valsoft motto. These are things that really appealed to me. And so it kind of dawned on me that, hey, this could be another good opportunity to learn and to be
okay.
involved. Um,
It's almost a professional development exercise to learn in this new game, right? Learn
yeah,
new
why
tricks,
not?
new tools, all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's important. To me, I always want to learn, and
yeah,
you can learn if you're open to it. But I've
yeah.
met many others. Like I've talked to others who are considering selling to Valsoft, who have asked me, "Is it really true? Do you really run your own company?" Or do they kind of come in and I was saying, "No, you really run it, and you're gonna as much as you worked as an entrepreneur, you're gonna work,"
Yeah,
you know? So that either appeals to you or it doesn't.
and they're obviously making it worth your while to stay on with the company, and you enjoy it. Do you feel like in a different place that you have money in the bank, you're not, your net worth isn't all tied up into something that could go away, in a recession or something like, like this year happened, tariffs hit or, recession happens. And, you're a little less panicked about making payroll?
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. I never thought that way on payroll. I guess I did early days, yeah, for sure. But for myself, I feel very good. I know how I operate. I know what I've done. I've secured a future, which I'm happy about. Um, I like to work. I like
Yeah.
what I'm doing. And I think that as long as you feel good and useful and purposeful, that's great. I don't know where the
Yeah.
next part of my future is, but I do know that I have plenty of opportunity. And I think that that's the way to look at it, that if you can feel confident that you've got opportunity, there's no reason that you don't. This is
Mhm.
another, I think, good lesson. Oftentimes, what do we lay awake thinking about? You think about the what ifs, and they're
Mhm.
typically negative. What if that
Mhm.
client leaves? What if I can't make payroll? What if,
Mhm.
whatever happens? And instead, we need to think about what if I get that next client? What if I have so much money in the bank, I don't know what to do with it? We have to think the opposites. And I think it's so important because it plants a different seed, and it's a
Yeah.
seed that you will grow. But I think that we're so used to being so worried about everything instead of saying, "Hey, I've got plenty of opportunity. I've got plenty ahead of me." And I know that I'll have choice. I'll make an impact. I'm taking everything I've got forward. These are the things we have to think about.
Did you have that view after the sale or, when you were running the company? I mean, running a long time company, you, let's say, climb a wall of worry, right, every day to do this. We're very aware of the problems, and that kinda drives us, right? We're whack-a-mole problem solving and so forth, but when we catch the car and win the prize and, don't have the team and the challenge and so forth, that can be very disturbing to most founders out
I
there
think,
who've done
yeah,
it for a long time.
I agree with you, and I think that I learned differently. So I invested in another aspect of self-development that really said just that. How do I eliminate the beliefs that don't help me and
Mhm.
really focus on reprogramming myself to think about the things that do help me?
Can you say who helped you with that or what
Same
program?
person. So the
Okay.
person that I went to Sandler training with, Rochelle Carrington, eventually sold that business. And I had called her because Valsoft was looking for some different types of training and uh, types of not personality and skill set type
Yeah.
questionnaires. And I thought, oh, let me recommend Rochelle. She's amazing. So she has a different business that's called emotional blueprinting.
Ah.
And
Mhm.
what's really, really cool about it, and I've discovered that I just love this, is that it's about reprogramming your subconscious and it's about
Yeah.
thinking differently and getting rid of those beliefs. Everybody has them.
Yeah.
Everybody has
It's
them.
always there. Yeah.
Yeah, and And again, it takes work, but I figured why not invest in me, you know?
There you go. Well, part of the challenge, the crazy challenge of building a company and being the person in charge and so forth. You get to change an industry, you get to change the company and your team. It's also changing you. And underneath all of that, let's say the skills and knowledge, learning, and so forth are these beliefs and the
Well,
subconscious. It's always there. Some founders are better at dealing with that stuff, but that growth journey is that's the stuff that helps you grow. It's not just piling on the knowledge and
I think it's
more
the
hours
stuff
in the
that
day.
helps you to appreciate your life. And, I think that for me, being an entrepreneur I've had plenty of ups and downs. I've had plenty of nights where I
Mhm.
just thought like, I'm going to just be up all night because I'm
Yeah.
worried about this or that. And lots of success and other things that weren't so great. But I've tried and the three founders, we kind of joke around having a PhD in the School of Hard Knocks.
Yes.
And
Uh-huh.
um and I think that using that to your power, right, is
Make it
what's
useful
really
for you.
important.
Yeah.
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 And so I
That's
I
right.
just I've always had that mentality of growth, of opportunity, of thinking what's next. And another thing that I think it's important to recognize, I've always been someone, and I've thought a lot about this over the years. I'm good with change. I
Ah.
Yeah, and so that's maybe it's a personality defect. Yeah,
No,
maybe it's something that
it's a personality.
right, this is just it. But I've recognized that I like projects that start and end. I like something different, and I like to get things to be done well. I think you have to inspect, you have to look at
Mhm.
process and constantly, try to improve it within your business. You have to look at your people and say, how can we help you to get to that next level? So
Yeah.
invest. And at the same time, you invest in yourself, and think more about what's next because we're not stagnant and we have plenty that we can do. We just have to really take advantage of time and of,
Yeah.
putting ourselves toward whatever that next ambition is.
Well, what is your next ambition here? Do you have a version of we want to double the business in a few years and I want to run it with a more scalable team and a certain thing, or do you have a vision for the company,
Yeah. We
inside Valsoft?
One of the things we're very heavily investing in now is we're kind of changing the way we do things. We have AI development happening.
Yeah, of course.
And so we've got products that we're bringing out that are
Right.
WeSuite products that will help sales teams to work more efficiently, be smarter. You
That's
know,
awesome.
woo, yeah, it's very
And
exciting.
can you say, just for because this is the question, what's coming in your product for AI? Is it, automatically bringing in, that inventory data, or is it helping in the sales process in some way?
It
What
is, yeah.
specifically? Yeah.
It's both of those. So one of the things we're doing right now is working on, helping sales teams. And in our industry, you can hire good salespeople that have no industry knowledge. That's a big
Mhm.
challenge for putting together a very technical type
Yes.
solution. So we're developing products that help them to have voice to text as they're walking a site, for instance, or looking at what a customer needs, but then marrying that with the types of products that they sell to
Mm.
eventually have suggestions as to this is a bill of materials that would work for that.
Okay.
This is labor that would work for that. Now, AI is not going to get it right all the time, but if you can
Mhm.
get somebody 80% there faster and more efficiently and accurately, then this is a massive upswing. Um,
So it's helping somebody who can sell and serve and ask the right questions to, more quickly get, that, 5 years or 10 years of industry experience, right? To
and greater
bring that.
accuracy, sell
Yeah.
more. We're looking at ways to improve scopes of work. One of the things I see constantly is that most people are not good at writing a scope of
Mhm.
work, and that's a part of your contract. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a very important aspect of what we do in helping selling teams. So we're looking at ways to do that. We're using AI to digest data and to even look at trends. If Joey can sell more of this, or Sally is better in these markets, or those kinds of things based on their data,
Right.
you know, versus trend data that's out there. It's about, how can you really help these companies and these sales teams and this particular salesperson to do better and do more and be more
Awesome.
successful.
It's a very exciting time, and even for practical founders, because we just weren't able to jump across and do all that, let's say, coaching and intelligence that software never did before, right? It's a great repository, great data, great calculation, great automation, but that intelligence, especially in verticals, I could see why Valsoft was so excited to acquire such a sticky product in a massive industry that has so much opportunity and unique data, and even in the AI world. So
Yeah, and I
it's very
think
exciting.
it's the fact is that over the last few years, everybody has heard of AI and been
You?
looking, right? We're looking for how to use it.
Hmm.
And I recently heard somebody say that AI is now to the level of a college grad, depending on
Hmm.
what you're using it for, right? And so what we're seeing is that it's getting smarter and smarter. There's more data, there's more use for it. And so we need to be there um, because, I had somebody in my organization say they were concerned, what if I get replaced by AI? And meantime, we're having our teams put AI in place in every single department here. And
Hmm.
so I said, well, what if we change that perspective to what would AI do to help me do my job
Right.
better? And so
Yeah.
you're going to not only, preserve your job, you're going to be able to do more. Um, and so it's almost like not losing your job. It's
Yeah.
about winning, doing more.
Yeah. And it's about the attitude too. You could
Yes.
say there's a negative, it's going to take my job, or it's positive, I'm going to be superpower and invaluable. Right. So you
Yeah.
can look at it both
Often
ways.
that's the perspective is what it's all about. It's, whether any aspect of your business as an entrepreneur, as a founder can easily go negative, easily, you
Yes.
know? But if we just take the minute to look it's a different
Take
direction.
a breath. Yeah. Take a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Let the blood go to the brain and think a little bit differently. And um, it makes a big difference in where you'll go.
Well, that's great advice there. And congratulations on your Hall of Fame status
Wow,
and
huh?
building a successful company and having the money back, making it back from Israel, and having so much opportunity
Thank you.
with your business, and with AI and everything else in your industry. It sounds very exciting, and you did it in your own way, Tracy.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Sounds like an awesome story.
Oh,
We didn't
that's
even get to all the hard stuff that you went through all those years,
yeah,
but
we've had no
we got enough.
challenges, and I'm a
Yeah.
middle child. I'm used to this.
Yes. Right.
That's what
Me too.
life is about, but yeah, I appreciate it too, Greg, getting to talk to you and also everything you're doing. The podcasts are so interesting, and I wish I knew you sooner. I wish I'll say that much, but yeah, and to all the women out there who are leading their teams, just go for it. Don't don't ever doubt anything, or if you do, go figure it out, you know?
So if there's a woman SaaS founder out there who wants to bend your ear about her situation and, get your perspective, can she reach out to you in some way?
100%. I'm on
Awesome.
LinkedIn, and that's another place that I've found great connections. LinkedIn has been the number one, especially B2B. So, yeah, absolutely share my connections. But
Yeah.
yeah, reach out. I'd be happy to talk and happy to learn.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the Practical Founders podcast, Tracy. It's a very exciting story, and I wish you the best. It's the next phase of this multi-phase journey.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, Greg. Take care.
Thanks for watching this week's interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly in-depth interviews with serious software founders who are building valuable software companies without big funding. You can check out my blog, all the podcast episodes and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com, or message me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. See you next week.